You know the story of Adam's rib? We all do. It's everywhere in art, in culture, in theology. It's a story that has shaped how we think about men and women for thousands of years. You know how it goes. Adam, the first man, is put to sleep, and God plucks out a rib to create Eve. She's a helper, a companion, but also she's second, an extra piece made from a spare part. This one story became a cornerstone for arguing that man came first and woman was an afterthought. But what if I told you that the word rib might be one of the most consequential translation choices in all of history? What if the original Hebrew word points to something else entirely? Something so different that it flips the entire story of humanity's origins on its head, revealing not a tale of hierarchy, but one of breathtaking equality. Well, today we're looking at the translation in Genesis that, when you see it, changes absolutely everything. If this revelation about Genesis intrigues you, the Genesis Revisited audiobook dives even deeper. Free trial link in pinned comment. Let's just quickly revisit the story we all learned from Genesis. Chapter 2. After making Adam, God says it's not good for the man to be alone. So, as the common English translation goes, God causes a deep sleep to fall on Adam, takes one of his ribs, and from that rib makes a woman. From this single passage, a whole narrative was born. Man is the primary creation. Woman is built from him. He is the original. She is the sequel. For 2,000 years, this idea echoed through history. Theologians and leaders pointed to this verse as biblical proof of a divine social order. Man as the head, woman as the helper. It's an idea that has been used to justify social structures, laws, and even roles within a family. The idea that one gender is foundational and the other is secondary. It's so deep in our collective psyche that we barely even think to question it. We see it in Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, with Eve emerging from Adam's side. We hear it in sermons. The story is simple, memorable, and for some, it was a convenient justification for an unequal world. But the entire foundation of this structure, the idea that Eve came from a ribble, hinges on the translation of one single Hebrew word. And that's where things start to get really interesting. The word at the heart of this mystery is Selah. In almost any English Bible you pick up, Genesis 2 will say, God took one of Adam's ribs. But that's a translation, a choice made by scholars hundreds of years after the text was written. To get to the bottom of this, we have to go back to the source. The word Selah shows up in the Hebrew Bible about 40 times. And here's where the investigation gets good. Out of those 40 times, guess how many times it's translated as rib? Only here. In this one story, pretty much every other instance, Selah means something far, far bigger. Let's just look at the evidence. The word Selah is almost always an architectural term. It's used to describe the side of a building or a structure. For example, in the book of Exodus, when God gives Moses the instructions for building the Holy Tabernacle. The text says to make wooden frames for the second side Selah of the tabernacle. It's not a small piece. It's a massive structural side of the entire holy building. It's used again when describing Solomon's temple. The word Selah refers to the side chambers, the structural beams. Again and again, when Selah appears, it refers to the entire side of a building, a room, or even the Ark of the Covenant. It means a whole half of something, a corresponding and equal part of a larger whole. So this leaves us with a huge question. If Selah means side in almost every other context, especially sacred ones, why translate it as rib just this one time? A rib is a small curved bone, one of 24. A side is half of a whole. The difference isn't just a detail, it's a world of meaning. Choosing to translate Selah as rib takes a major structural half and shrinks it down to a small, insignificant bone. That single word choice changes the whole dynamic of the creation story. And this is where it all clicks into place. Eve was not made from Adam's rib. Eve was made from Adam's side. God wasn't performing some delicate surgery to take out a tiny bone. The text seems to be describing an act of cosmic architecture. God separated the first human, the Adam, into two corresponding halves. This isn't a story about making a subordinate from a spare part. It's a story about splitting a single, unified being into two equal complementary partners. And there's more in the text that points to this. The Hebrew verb used when God creates Eve is different from the one for Adam, in Genesis 2-7. Adam is Yatzer, or formed like a potter forms clay. But when God creates Eve, the verb is bana, which means to build or to construct. It's the same verb used for building a city or a house. God formed Adam from the ground, but he built Eve from the side of the original human. That isn't the language of making a derivative. It's the language of building a counterpart. This isn't even a new or radical idea. Ancient Jewish scholars debated this exact point centuries ago. In a text called Genesis Rabbah, a scholar argued that Selah had to mean side, pointing to its use in describing the tabernacle. He saw what the text was describing, the creation of two equal halves of one whole. So, what does the story look like now? God takes the original human, puts it into a visionary sleep, and then separates it, building one entire side into a woman and the other side into a man. They start as one, are separated, and are meant to come back together. Ready to explore more? Check the description for books that reveal the true meanings behind biblical texts. This reading of the text doesn't just change a detail. It shatters the foundation of the old hierarchical interpretation. If Eve was built from Adam's side, she isn't his subordinate. She is his equal, his mirror image, his other half. Think about Adam's reaction when he first sees her. He cries out, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." If she were made from just a rib, he could have just said bone of my bone, but he says flesh of my flesh too. Why? Because she came from his entire side bone and flesh? His cry isn't a superior naming a subordinate. It's a joyful shout of recognition. He's seeing his equal, his perfect partner, the one who corresponds to him completely. He sees himself, but different. They are made of the same stuff. The rib story has been a powerful tool for patriarchy, giving a divine seal of approval to the idea that women are secondary. It has shaped laws, limited opportunities, and created power imbalances with devastating consequences. But the side story tells a totally different tale. It gives us a vision of humanity rooted in partnership and equality. It suggests that from the very beginning, the divine blueprint was for two distinct but equal halves to unite to become whole. Neither is the original, neither is the copy. Both are essential, both are foundational, and both are created in the image of God. This reading, which has strong support from the original Hebrew and is championed by modern scholars like Phyllis Tribble, dismantles the theological argument for gender hierarchy right at its source. The clues don't even stop there. The deep sleep that God puts Adam into, the Hebrew word tardama, isn't just a nap. It's a word used elsewhere in the Bible to describe a prophetic or visionary trance. It's the same state Abraham was in when God made a profound covenant with him. So Adam wasn't just knocked out for surgery. He was put into a state of divine revelation to witness the very act of humanity being built into two equal parts. All of this shows just how much can be hidden in translation. It reminds us that translation is never neutral. It's always an act of interpretation. Take the very first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Many scholars now argue a more precise translation is when God began to create, which changes the meaning from a creation out of nothing to God bringing order to what was already there. These choices have massive theological consequences. And just like that debate, the choice to translate Selah as rib has had a huge impact on our world. It tilted the scales, creating a narrative of inequality where one of partnership was likely intended. If looking at the original Hebrew has opened your eyes to a new way of seeing this ancient story, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What version of the story did you first learn? And if you think that getting closer to the original language is key to understanding these texts, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives that challenge old narratives, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. We started with a simple, familiar story. A woman made from a man's rib. But by digging into the language, we followed the clues, the true meaning of Selah, the architectural verb bana, the visionary sleep of Tardamond. We found a story that's been hiding in plain sight. It's a story not of hierarchy, but of unity, not of a primary and a secondary, but of a partnership. It's the story of one being separated into two perfect equal halves, designed to find their way back to each other. Words build worlds. And for centuries, one translation choice helped build a world of inequality. But when we go back to the source, we find the original blueprint. A blueprint for a different world, one built on a foundation of perfect divine equality from the very start. Continue uncovering hidden biblical truths with our recommended resources below.